The digital age, while connecting people across vast distances, also opened new, darker avenues for criminal enterprise. In the mid-2000s, Mexico City, a vibrant metropolis pulsating with millions of lives, became the unwitting stage for a series of horrific crimes that would forever etch themselves into the annals of criminal history. This was the era when the anonymity of the internet, a burgeoning frontier for human interaction, was tragically exploited by a predator who would come to be known as the Internet Killer. His name was Raúl Osiel Marroquín, a former military officer whose calculated brutality and chilling motives sent shockwaves through the nation. Between 2005 and 2006, a disturbing pattern began to emerge in the sprawling urban landscape of Mexico City. Young men, predominantly members of the LGBTQ+ community, were vanishing without a trace. Their disappearances were initially treated as isolated incidents, yet a deeper, more sinister connection lay hidden beneath the surface. It was the painstaking work of dedicated investigators, piecing together fragmented clues that eventually unveiled the horrifying truth. A serial killer was operating within their midst, using the very tools designed for connection to ensnare his unsuspecting victims. Raúl Osiel Marroquín was not a shadowy figure lurking in back alleys. He was a methodical, intelligent individual who leveraged technology to his advantage. His background in the military, which often instills discipline and strategic thinking, seemed to have been twisted into a perverse skill set for his heinous acts. Marroquín's victims were lured through online chat rooms and dating sites, platforms that offered a sense of privacy and freedom for individuals seeking connection, particularly within the gay community. This digital hunting ground allowed Marroquín to carefully select his targets, exploiting their trust and the very nature of these emerging online communities. The motivation behind Marroquín's crimes was a complex and disturbing tapestry woven from financial opportunism and a profound, deeply rooted hatred. While extortion played a significant role, he would kidnap his victims and then attempt to extract ransom money from their terrified families. His actions were also fueled by a virulent animosity towards homosexual men. This animosity, as later investigations would reveal, stemmed from personal experiences and perceived slights, transforming into a lethal prejudice that manifested in extreme violence. He saw his victims not merely as sources of income, but as targets for his warped sense of retribution. The modus operandi was chillingly consistent. Marroquín would establish contact online, build a facade of trust, and arrange a physical meeting. What began as an innocent encounter quickly devolved into a nightmare of abduction, torture, and ultimately murder. After committing these unspeakable acts, he would then use the victims' own phones to contact their families, demanding ransom for their safe return, fully aware that his demands could never be met. This added a layer of psychological torment to the physical violence, extending the suffering to the victims' loved ones. The case of Raúl Osiel Marroquín highlighted a new, terrifying dimension of criminal activity, demonstrating how readily emerging technologies could be weaponized. The Internet, once seen as a beacon of progress and global connectivity, now revealed its potential as a dangerous tool in the hands of a determined and ruthless killer. The investigators, grappling with a novel type of crime, faced unprecedented challenges in tracking a perpetrator who moved seamlessly between the virtual and physical worlds, leaving a trail of digital breadcrumbs that were difficult to interpret with the technological understanding of the time. The revelation of the Internet Killer forced law enforcement and the public alike to confront the darker side of online interaction, forever changing perceptions of digital safety and personal security. His reign of terror, though relatively short, left an indelible mark, serving as a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities inherent in an increasingly interconnected world. Before we continue, Subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Marroquín's victim profile was disturbingly specific. Gay men, frequently those seeking connection through nascent online platforms. He exploited the trust inherent in these digital spaces where individuals, often seeking discreet encounters or genuine relationships, felt a sense of anonymity and security. This vulnerability became his primary weapon. His modus operandi was a calculated sequence of deception, violence, and attempted extortion. He would engage with his targets in chat rooms or dating sites, cultivating a superficial rapport. Once a meeting was arranged, often under the guise of a romantic or casual encounter, the situation would quickly turn violent. Marroquín would kidnap his victims, subjecting them to torture before ultimately taking their lives. Following the murders, he would use the victims' own mobile phones to contact their families, demanding ransom payments. This strategy not only added to the financial motive, but also inflicted profound psychological distress on the victims' loved ones, creating false hope while knowing the victim was already deceased. The initial investigations faced significant hurdles. The social climate in Mexico City during the mid-2000s regarding LGBTQ+ individuals was complex. While not universally hostile, societal prejudices and a degree of social stigma often meant that disappearances within this community might not immediately receive the same level of public or investigative scrutiny as those involving other demographics. This unfortunately allowed Marroquín to operate for a period without immediate detection of a larger pattern. The cases were often treated as isolated incidents, complicated further by the victims' diverse backgrounds and the lack of immediate, overt connections between them. Law enforcement officers, the primary investigators, struggled to link these seemingly disparate events. The technological aspect of Marroquín's crimes was pioneering and particularly challenging for the authorities of the era. The internet and early online dating and chat platforms were relatively new frontiers. Law enforcement protocols for tracking digital footprints, analyzing online communication, and understanding the nuances of virtual interactions were still in their infancy. Marroquín skillfully leveraged the anonymity these platforms offered, making it difficult to trace his digital identity back to his physical self. This reliance on the internet highlighted a new and terrifying dimension of criminal activity, forcing investigators to adapt to an evolving landscape of crime. The tools designed for global connection had become instruments of isolation and death. Raúl Osiel Marroquín's background provided some insight into the man behind the crimes. He had served in the military, an experience that often instills discipline, strategic thinking, and a certain level of detachment. While his exact service record and any disciplinary actions are pertinent, his military training likely contributed to his organized and methodical approach to his crimes. His prior encounters with the law, if any, were not widely publicized before his capture, suggesting a relative lack of a formal criminal record that would have flagged him earlier. However, the psychological profile that emerged indicated a deep-seated hatred towards homosexual men, believed to stem from personal experiences and perceived slights. These experiences, though not fully detailed in public records, acted as a powerful, twisted catalyst for his violent actions, transforming personal grievance into lethal prejudice. Forensic evidence played a crucial role in eventually unmasking Marroquín. As the number of disappearances mounted, investigators began to find patterns, albeit slowly. The recovery of bodies, though sometimes delayed or complicated, allowed for the collection of physical evidence. DNA, fingerprints, and other trace evidence, meticulously gathered and analyzed, became critical components in constructing a profile of the perpetrator. The use of the victim's phones for extortion provided a digital trail, however faint, that investigators painstakingly followed. cross-referencing phone records, online activity logs, and witness statements from individuals who had interacted with Marroquín online or in person gradually built a case. The combination of traditional forensic techniques with emerging digital investigative methods ultimately led to the identification and capture of Raúl Osiel Marroquín, marking a significant, albeit tragic, milestone in the fight against online facilitated crime. The painstaking work of law enforcement officers piecing together these complex clues underscored the dedication required to bring such a cunning criminal to justice. The painstaking work of law enforcement officers piecing together these complex clues underscored the dedication required to bring such a cunning criminal to justice. Eventually, a crucial break emerged. Investigators, meticulously cross-referencing phone records, online activity logs, and witness statements from individuals who had interacted with Marroquín online or in person, began to identify a consistent pattern. The digital breadcrumbs, initially scattered and difficult to interpret, coalesced into a discernible path. This digital forensics, combined with traditional detective work, allowed the investigators to construct a detailed profile of the suspect, ultimately leading to Raúl Osiel Marroquín. The realization that one individual was responsible for the string of disappearances and murders sent a chilling wave through the Mexico City Police Department. Marroquín's apprehension occurred discreetly, avoiding a public spectacle that might have jeopardized the investigation or allowed him to flee. Details surrounding his arrest remain somewhat guarded, but it is understood that law enforcement officers moved decisively to take him into custody. The initial interrogation was a critical phase, faced with mounting evidence, including forensic links and the testimonies of those who had narrowly escaped his clutches. Marroquín began to confess. His confessions were chillingly detailed, outlining his methods, the locations of his victims, and the motivations behind his heinous acts. He admitted to targeting gay men lured through online chat rooms and dating sites, confirming the investigators' growing suspicions. His primary motivations, as he articulated them, were a twisted combination of financial gain through extortion and a deep-seated virulent hatred towards homosexual men, stemming from personal experiences and perceived slights that had festered into murderous prejudice. The full scope of Marroquín's cruelty became apparent with his confessions. He detailed the kidnappings, the torture, and the murders, recounting them with an unsettling calm. The lives lost were not just statistics. They were individuals with families, friends, and futures. The victims, whose identities had sometimes been obscured by the circumstances of their deaths, were finally acknowledged. Their families, who had endured agonizing uncertainty and false hope, now faced the grim reality of their loved ones' fates. The LGBTQ+ community in Mexico City, already grappling with societal prejudices, was profoundly impacted by the revelations, experiencing a renewed sense of grief, fear, and a fierce demand for justice. The legal proceedings that followed were extensive and emotionally charged. Raúl Osiel Marroquín was formally charged with multiple counts of kidnapping, murder, and extortion. The evidence presented in court was overwhelming, leaving little doubt about his guilt. He was ultimately convicted and sentenced, receiving a lengthy prison sentence commensurate with the severity of his crimes. The convictions brought a measure of closure to the victims' families, though the pain of their loss remained. Public reaction to the unmasking of the internet killer was immediate and widespread. There was a collective shock and outrage that such brutality could have occurred, particularly facilitated by the emerging digital landscape. The case sparked a national conversation about online safety, the vulnerabilities inherent in anonymous online interactions, and the urgent need for enhanced security measures. Crucially, it also forced a more open discussion about prejudice and violence against marginalized communities, particularly the LGBTQ+ community in Mexico. The case became a tragic catalyst for greater awareness and advocacy for LGBTQ+ rights and protection. The legacy of Raúl Osiel Marroquín's crimes is profound. It served as a stark lesson for law enforcement agencies globally, highlighting the necessity of developing sophisticated digital forensic capabilities and adapting investigative strategies to combat cybercrime. The case underscored the evolving nature of criminal activity in the digital age, prompting the creation of specialized units and training programs focused on online investigations. For victim support organizations, it emphasized the importance of acknowledging and addressing the specific needs of marginalized communities affected by hate crimes. In the aftermath, initiatives emerged to enhance online safety, including public awareness campaigns about the risks of meeting strangers from the internet and the importance of verifying identities. Technology companies were encouraged to implement stronger security protocols and reporting mechanisms for suspicious online behavior. The case of the Internet killer remains a chilling reminder of the dark potential of online anonymity and the enduring consequences of unchecked prejudice. It continues to fuel discussions about the ongoing fight against hate-motivated violence and the critical imperative to foster a safer, more inclusive society, both online and offline.